Welcome to the FNO InsurTech Podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsurTech. We talk about how technology and innovation are affecting and driving change in the industry. Here are your hosts, Matt D. Fothery, Lee Boyd, and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world. Welcome to another remarkable, unbelievable, stupendous, order of magnitude.
Those are brand new words.
Yeah, I'm making it up as I go.
You must have been reading.
I'm making it up as I go.
Okay.
So, episode of
FNO InsurTech. Right?
Keep Going.
Podcast?
Keep going.
Oh.
Keep going.
My bad. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you could join us today. I am your co-host, Lee Boyd, joined by co-host Rob Beller. Welcome,
That's
Rob.
me. That's me. Well, thank you, Lee. It's nice to be here. It's good to join you.
I'm glad you made it. Yeah.
You're kind of in the host. I put you in the host chair real quick.
You did, but you know, Rob, this day and age, internet is a little hard to come by, right?
Yes.
We have had, with this one episode, we've had a couple of different times where internet bandwidth has failed us. And we want to, we're in this with you. Most of us are at our house. We're hunkered down, right, during the coronavirus here. And I'm glad you could join us today on this internet, Rob.
Well, I've joined you hanging by my internet fingernails, right?
It's
terrible.
terrible.
It's like I am so slow. My internet is so slow that it's like
a turtle.
Internet molasses. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
I am
maybe like
turtle.
A snail.
That's the name of the internet. I have Turtle Internet. That's the name of my provider today. In fact, my internet is so slow it's like dial-up.
Yeah.
For those of us that were old enough to remember that. But anyways, what does any of this have to do with our guest today?
Well, our guest has a software in a company that is anything but slow. It's a very fast company, right? You see what I did there?
Yeah. That was very good. Yeah.
Why don't you tell them who we have on today?
Today we have on the co-founder and CEO of Hover, AJ Altman. And AJ joins us from San Francisco today, where he is sheltered in place along with everyone else here in California and in many other states around the country. And AJ's here not just to give us a little bit of background on Hover, but also really to kind of dig into what Hover does and how it does it and how it relates to the insurance industry.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to him. I heard him a couple of years ago at a on-ramp conference in Chicago, and he was a delight. He told the whole story about Hover and what it is and what it's doing and a little bit of its roadmap. And I'm very excited to talk to him. He is a long-time CEO at Hover, since the beginning, 9 years. And I'm excited to learn a little bit about the story and then a little bit about how he sees our world changing throughout this pandemic that's going on.
And for those of you people who are involved in InsurTech out there, which I'm sure is most everybody, why else would you listen to this crazy podcast? But as a company that has the opportunity to use this product all the time, it's very unique in a few ways. Number one, it really serves the claims side of the business as well as underwriting and other verticals as well. But it also works really, really well. It fundamentally changes the way that we can operate. It really is one of those products that lives up to the full promise of InsurTech and what it's about and what it's supposed to be. And it's really something that's transformational. So it's exciting to have somebody on who's been so integral in making that a product like this come about.
Yeah, I mean, such a visionary. That's what I think. I mean, to be able to take an idea and to change it and move it to fit the needs of carriers or other verticals, right? It's not just insurance. He's all over the place. but just a real visionary in our world. So I'm excited. Let's jump on in and visit with him.
Well, you're the lead dog here, so let's bring this thing home. Go ahead.
Without further ado, here's your
Uh-huh.
episode with
Yeah.
AJ Altman, co-founder and CEO of Hover.
Hey everybody, we are here on another hunkered down shelter in place day.
Yeah.
Maybe shelter in place day X, I don't know, 10, whatever it may be. And we have a really special and generous guest with us today, AJ Altman, co-founder and CEO of Hover. How you doing, AJ?
I'm great. Thank you for the time.
Sure. Where are you hunkered down?
I'm in San Francisco. That's home.
Okay, cool. And you generously took a ride today to get this podcast done, didn't you?
Yes, residential internet is a challenge these days. The entire universe is working from home, so I had to squirrel about and find some good commercial grade fiber to make this happen. So it's all good. Nice to get out.
Well, we can hear it
Yeah.
because you sound great.
Much better. Yeah.
Let's just jump right in. As we said before we started, your origin story is kind of well known, but if you could just kind of run through and give us a minute on what Hover is and kind of how you got there, let's do that just so that we can move forward from there.
Great. Yeah. So, Hover is basically a platform that generates digital property data. And that data is used by a number of industries, but you could really just kind of relegate it to anyone who cares about scoping projects on buildings on Earth, which means there's a tremendous sweet spot with the labor market, professionals who work on buildings, as well as those massive industries that sell products and services onto those buildings, the manufacturers who build products that go on buildings care about our data, as well as, of course, the largest service providers on Earth for for building objects, which likely would be the insurance industry. My background, computer engineer turned marine grunt turned, co-founder of a software business. I moved out to California after college, grew up in the Midwest, and met my co-founder within a few months of getting out of the Marine Corps and coming back from the Middle East. So been at this for our, now 9 years.
Wow. What is your biggest vertical? What do y'all work in the most?
If you look at it in terms of volume and revenue, the largest percentage would be that professional labor market. So exterior building contractors.
Oh, okay. And for those listeners, who are listening and have lived under a rock and don't know what Hover is, Hover really is a fantastic tool. With just a very few amount of photos, roughly 8 photos, you're able to give measurements of the exterior of a home in a very, very quick amount of time and deliver that with all sorts of measurements, not just windows or eaves, but roof measurements from the ground. Isn't that right, AJ?
That's right. So, our data package is a full exterior shell. Every single architecturally relevant measurement on the exterior of the building object comes out of our data package, and that includes, the depth of the soffit around the entire structure. Things that can't be identified from the air, as well as, again, you noted, but every to the finest detail elevation measurement data point that's relevant for exterior project or exterior renovation.
Yeah.
It comes from. If you haven't downloaded our app or tried it, it's the first one's free. Grab it in the App Store and walk out this weekend and grab 5 to 8 happy snaps of your house. The app will guide you around the building, and within an hour or so, depending upon the complexity of what you just scanned, you'll get back that data package.
And a lot of times I get asked about the accuracy of Hover. I get asked a lot, is it as accurate as aerial measurements as others? And I was actually doing some research on your website, and I came across the independently ordered Hague report, where it compared Hover to 2 leading aerial providers, where it's showing that the accuracy of Hover and the ability to get measurements is greater than the two leading aerial providers. That seems pretty cool. And is there anything you want to add to that one, AJ?
Well, a couple things. So
Okay.
certainly that's true. We've believed that for a long time. We've obviously done in-field testing with hand measurements with companies large and small for the last 5 years. And so we had high confidence in that. It was great to get that third-party stamp of approval. But a couple of thoughts. Number one, that study doesn't really get into a couple of other factors about why hover is useful. One is completeness of data set. That was an apples to apples comparison of the measurements that one can obtain from aerial measurements, which is a subset of what we generate, right?
Right.
I talked about soffit depth, certainly gutters and downspouts. Even in the roofing segment, there are measurements. There's a fidelity of detail that we extract that the aerial folks aren't able to get to. Nothing against the aerial folks, that, amazing businesses that invented use cases, have a lot of respect for those companies, but to say nothing of the elevation data, which of course they aren't able to get to. Another piece that I think doesn't really come out in that data set or in that study is there's a completeness or ability of the aerial providers to even generate an output based upon the challenges of occlusion from vegetation, from trees, frankly.
Right.
Right. Big problem.
So 10 to 15% of the time, we have pretty good intel on this. Certainly, in the vicinity of 15% of the time, those leading aerial providers simply can't return anything. And in our case, assuming no user error in that scan, something like between 98 and 99% of hover cases can we generate the full data package.
Wow. Yeah. And it looks like here in the study, y'all had 100% return, a certain number that you looked at, 100% of yours were able to be returned. Pretty fascinating.
Yeah. One other thing that we think about a lot here is as you started that piece, the way you brought up the question, I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I want to say the data set that was measured in that study showed something like a plus or minus 2.5% error with hover data and something like a 3.5% error with the leading aerial provider. So you're talking about upwards of maybe a 30 to 40% reduction in error, even at such a small percentage of total plus or minus error, which doesn't feel like a lot, but we're convinced that in the long run, the insurance segment and the largest players in the building products industry, those kinds of numbers matter. And if precision and transparency to their customers is important, which everyone says it is, then everyone should be using the most precise data set out there, which is, I think, what we're proving our data is.
Well, when you talk about a percentage point at the scale of in the insurance industry, you're talking about tens or hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yep.
So a point is a big deal. We've seen our customers claw, scrape, and do anything to shave a point off. So it's highly significant, as I'm sure most of the people in our audience can appreciate. I have a question about inspiration. You said that you moved to San Francisco and you met your co-founder. Did you? I'm always interested. How in the world did you get here? Could you share with us for a few minutes or briefly how you got from, hey, it's nice to meet you, co-founder, to this podcast today? I mean, on a product level, what did you see at first, and is it where you are today?
Yes and no. I think what we did see was if one builds a technology that turns photos into 3D spatial data, people should care about it. And some people probably should care so much that it's worth something to them. It's worth them pulling their wallet out of their pocket. What we didn't see, or what we were totally lay people and making guesses about at the time, was exactly who those people are, exactly why they care, and exactly why they pull their wallet out, and how many bills they pull out of the wallet and why. And that was the journey that took us 3.5 years of talking to lots and lots of potential users of, spatial building data, and morphing our data set and our pipeline over time, and going back to them and saying, is this what you mean? And them saying, yeah, but this, and then us going away and coming back again and saying, is this what you mean? Right. And that sort of, hunt for product market fit was something that took us, we were in the woods for a couple of years. And thankfully we had an early use case with the defense segment that helped us keep the lights on early days. But we got here, my co-founder introduced me to a couple of engineers that taught me about photogrammetry. And photogrammetry is probably like the best word to umbrella some of the basic concepts around what I would call 3D math or triangulation. There are a lot of sort of words that would be used to kind of get at this idea that if you take a picture of something from a position, that picture is just a grid of pixels. It's a 2D grid of pixels that is generated. It's a capture of light across a grid of pixels, and there's no 3D information in those pixels. But you and I, as humans, we know that they're inside that picture of a house, for example. That if we picked a pixel in that photo and then picked a pixel next to it, the distance between us and that pixel, and then us and the pixel next door, those two distances would be slightly different because there's 3D information in there, right? There's a house in there. And so that concept of, and then of course, if you have two photos of something, then you have, if you know where those cameras are relative to that thing, that object, then you now have a triangle. You have two positions where the cameras were, and you have an object that is the object of each sets of grids of pixels. And therefore, now you have trigonometry, and you can do this math that figures out how far away the pixels would be in the two scenes assuming that you're taking a picture of the same object. So that's not something they teach in undergrad computer science.
Yeah.
At the time, even 10 years ago, this was kind of a niche wing of math / computer science that was being used in defense and a few other areas. Certainly architecture, CAD, those types of software packages take advantage of this reality.
Sure.
But when I saw that, of course, like my mind kind of jumped to the end. I was like, well, okay, wow. So if you can set this up, and if you have this, if the math works, the math is the math, and now you have this device in our pocket, this mobile thing that lets us take pictures. And at the time, the number of pictures on the planet was effectively going asymptotic. It was going straight up, right? Instagram was kicking off. All these people were finding all kinds of reasons to pull their phone out of their pocket and take pictures.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I thought, okay, well, someone's going to automate this whole thing and figure out a way to always project the depth of the pixels from all the photos all the time. And when that happens, because we have so many inputs coming from all these pockets, we're going to have a bunch of 3D spatial data that ought to be useful for stuff. At a minimum, generating spatial 3D data, building a better map than everyone else.
Sure.
And so more of that conceptual thing that I kind of got obsessed with. And then, of course, we spent years looking for practical reasons why people would care.
Tell me about the defense. Why did the defense care? What did they want to do with that?
Well, so the defense.
I don't know if you can tell me. You might not be able to tell me.
The defense use case was something that stuck out to me the moment I saw this, because I had just gotten back from the Middle East, planning and running missions with, frankly, some pretty bad imagery. And, putting people in harm's way and going to dangerous places with a bunch of grainy satellite photos of a scene. And so the first product we built was one that would help folks like that take imagery that they already had and through a process extract the 3D depth of those building objects in that scene to build a 3D rendering of that scene, which helped them with mission planning, helped them show more realistic view to their team before they would have to hop on a truck or a helo and go somewhere the next day.
Sure. I mean, saving lives, right?
Yes, certainly
Yeah.
reducing risk.
Reducing risk.
Yep.
So you're hunting around, you're looking around, and was insurance kind of immediate as an immediate aha, or did that come later?
It was. I think we suspected, again, as lay people, as people not from insurance or construction or any of these places, that the insurance industry would care. I had a real an allergy to or fear of selling to giant enterprises because I had a sense of the challenge of convincing a Titanic the captain of a Titanic to turn the Titanic.
Right.
And so was pretty reticent to go after that space early on, and thankfully found some other opportunities. Again, in particular, the SMB, the small medium business contractor segment, that didn't have that artifact or that challenge of selling to the enterprise. The SMB segment is, frankly, 100,000 plus small business owners who you can call up or send an email to and quickly expose them to a concept. And if they want to, they can download an app and put their credit card on file and start trying the product tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they don't have an MSA that they need me to spend 6 months on, and I don't need SOC 2 compliance. And they behave much more like you might call them a prosumer. That's not a word that's used as much anymore, but they behave more like a consumer who's
Sure.
willing to try new things
Right.
on their own risk. And so that was a good thing for us early days to bootstrap the business. But I mean, to your point, within a year, we started to get inbound from the carriers themselves because they were seeing our data because it was being submitted by our first customer, the contractor segment,
Yeah.
on behalf of the homeowner for a claim.
Yeah. So did that allow you to kind of prove the functionality on it, and then the insurance companies called you and were interested? Is that how that worked?
Correct. Right. It's always better to sell to someone who wants to be sold to than someone who has a lot of other things to worry about.
And today, I mean, I hear Hover everywhere from all sorts of carriers. It used to be, hey, there's this cool technology, Hover. Have you heard of them? And now it's, hey, there's this amazing technology, and we're going to start using it. And I think y'all have finally made the switch to full acceptance. Is that what you're finding?
I think that's right. We certainly have tipped those scales, or we've crossed the chasm, and we're into the early majority and mid majority of the segment. That's been a long slog, but things turned pretty quickly in the last, call it, 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly a key element of that has been the ability for our customer to engage the policyholder remotely. And then, of course, world events. None of us planned for a global pandemic, but world events have also sort of reinforced that value proposition, I think, today.
It's hard for us to do podcasts and ignore entirely what's going on in the world right now, and for posterity, we'll just say that we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic and the response in our country. All three of us are hunkered down in our locations where we live, but we can't help but thinking about the effect that this is having on our industry and on our business and on the business in general. And I was talking with a buyer, if you will, from a major insurance company just today, and I said to him, does this change the claims business, the future of the claims business? And he didn't even need to think about it. And he said, yes, absolutely. Do you see that as an outcome of what we're going through now? I mean, now that you went from being a novice or somebody that didn't know anything about insurance, probably now you know too much about insurance. So welcome to our club of those people who know too much about insurance. So what do you have? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, I suspect he's correct. I, before this occurred, we we were we were seeing a sea change in behavior from our carrier partners and our both our existing and our piloting carrier customers. They were recognizing the value both in terms of efficiency as well as CSAT, making their policyholders happy in using our technology. And that being said, again, back to the whole turn the Titanic, change is hard. And getting anyone to fight gravity and inertia, especially the larger the organization, is hard no matter what you've got. You can have the cure for cancer.
Correct.
My co-founder and I always used to make the joke: if we had the cure for cancer, it would take us 2 years to get company X to actually, once they even knew it was the cure, to actually fully adopt it, just because of the processes required to get there. And if anything, I think this scenario we find ourselves in has forced a lot of folks to open their eyes and give something a try that they're now realizing not only solves this tactical problem we happen to be in, but is accelerating their realization that, in fact, it is what the policyholder, in most cases, would love, the kind of experience they'd love to have. And so I think as we come out of this, yes, the world is different. The exposure of remote selling and adjustment and closing of cases, that this kind of experience is going to kind of restart in a position 35 yards down the field from where we entered this.
We would agree with that. And you bring up an interesting point about it's not only something that's totally required right now, because the industry's kind of out of answers, right? I mean, insureds don't want strangers coming to their home now, either inside
Absolutely.
of their house or outside or on their property. Just
Right?
Please stay. Completely understandable. I would be one of those people myself, and as I'm sure many of our listeners are, you just don't want to run that risk. And so, in the face of, oh my gosh, all of our traditional methods are now useless or can't be used. What do we do? And so your solution and a few others stand out as immediate answers to a very difficult problem that insurers now have to grapple with within a time frame that they don't like to deal with, and that's right now, immediately. As you know, and you've kind of alluded to that. I mean, we have a sales cycle that sometimes can literally take years, and they're having to make decisions in days. But you also said something else, and that is that insureds want to do this. Do you think that that's the case, or do you think that's a coronavirus influenced thing?
Oh, no, I mean, I know it's the case. We've been in existence for 4.5 years with this product in the market. And for more than half of it, we've had capabilities in our product that some of our more progressive carrier and IA customers have leveraged to engage the homeowner and have been able to prove to themselves, and of course, hence us, because we have dozens of examples now where not only is it not a burden for the homeowner, that's, I think, the fear for a lot of folks at the beginning is like, do I really want to ask my policyholder to do my job for me? Is kind of the way they think about it.
Right.
So not only is that not true, the homeowner doesn't feel like you're schlepping, your work off on them, but they enjoy it. It's a sense of self-determination. I can take care of this problem. I don't have to worry about scheduling. I don't have to come home from work. I can use technology because my carrier vendor that I have this relationship with, they're technology adopters, and they've offered me this great way to take care of this without having to deal with the burden of talking to folks and coming home early.
And isn't that really where it's at right now? Allowing the insured to do what they want to do. I understand a lot of insurance companies are thinking that they're going to push all the claims to the insured and they're going to self-service everything. But it's really about giving them an option. It's really about saying if this is what you want, you can. And then your tool is very useful for both. Your tool can be insured facing, but it can also be inspector or adjusting facing, which I think is very, very important. What I'm thinking about the insured being a self-service where they're actually able to do that. Are y'all looking at anything else? Right now, it's exterior measurements. Is there anything else on the roadmap?
Oh, geez. Depends on how far you go out on the roadmap. Yeah, I mean, certainly outside the realm that we've spoken about, we have a company mission and vision that takes us beyond these spaces. I think the part that's easy to talk about it are the logical extensions, both on the regardless of whether a project is elective or not elective, right? Whether it's a retail project or a claim.
Right.
There are expansions or adjacencies that are pretty obvious, right? Today, our technology is used to help scope window, paint, siding, roofing jobs, right? Those types of projects. But our data set also could and has been able to scope other types of projects that are exterior. And certainly our core technology, there's nothing fundamental about our computer vision and deep learning pipeline that keeps us from generating 3D information from those dumb grids of 2D pixels that might be taken in an interior. Without, we certainly don't comment on long-term roadmap thinking, but we built this team with a vision in mind that expanded far beyond exterior home improvement and exterior claims. And that being said, of course, those use cases are massive, and those customers are fantastic, and we have amazing relationships, and we're helping those business owners, whether it's an SMB or a Travelers. We're helping those business owners save money on the bottom line and actually make money from whether it's insurance carrier CSAT pulling in more customers, or it's SMB contractors being able to close more business, increase their close rates. We're helping them grow their top line as well. So it's fun. It's a win-win, right? We're not asking people to give us money because we want their money. We're trying to give them something valuable, and the money ought to make sense for everyone.
So we were at InsurTech Connect this year, and you guys got a tremendous shout out from Travelers. Speaking of Travelers, and they couldn't have spoken more highly about your product and the company. I mean, obviously that was a terrific thing that any company would want to have happen. But did that create more traction for you guys as a result?
Well, I think it's helped wake up that industry and helped folks in that industry. It's all well and good for me to talk about the value proposition on this podcast or anywhere else, but it's wholly another thing for a VP of claims at a top 10 carrier or a top 5 carrier to hear the VP of claims at another top 10 carrier say, this is really valuable and here's what it does for us. And it's a game changer and you're crazy not to go down this path. So yeah, that's been, I can't say enough good things about the Travelers team either. Extremely progressive minded, which is great in terms of just their willingness to think about technology and disruption, and kind of the idea that technology happens and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. But more so, I think just from a leadership perspective, it's refreshing to see kind of a risk-taking mode from a carrier, a willingness to try, which shouldn't be a unique quality, but I think in some cases it is in this segment. That understandably, leadership in this space, risk is a scary thing, and this industry historically has moved slowly enough that the risk of action sometimes or frequently can outweigh the risk of inaction. But the Travelers team has been really fun to work with because they not only see it, but they're willing to take a bit of a risk to prove something, to give themselves confidence to take a bigger risk. And they moved pretty quickly, and lo and behold, here we are. They are ubiquitously using our technology.
Amazing.
AJ, I was just thinking. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile here, and it says that you've been founder CEO for 9 years. We don't talk to a lot of CEOs who have been there for 9 years. A lot of insured techs are newer. They're newer to our industry. They're 2-3 years. And I was looking here. It looks like you graduated from University of Notre Dame back in 2000. Yes. And I'm just wondering, whenever you started this 9 years ago, you probably had a vision that you would design and be behind a computer writing code. But then I read that you're to date, if this is up to date, $87 million in funding from companies like Google Ventures, Standard Industries, the Home Depot. I mean, was this road anything like you thought it would be 9 years ago?
I think you can't imagine how that's going to play out. I think what I suspected at the beginning was this won't be easy. There's no way to really have a sense of how quickly we can find success, but I'm in it for whatever it takes. I think one of the qualities I've been cursed and blessed with is plenty of stubbornness. So
yeah,
and share that with my co-founder, and so I guess at the time I didn't really care. I was kind of like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. Let's go. Let's get started. And it'll take however long it takes. And I think as long as there's a sense of an unwillingness to kind of quit until you figure it out, then, somehow you get there in the end. I love those stories though, right? Like, our town, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, tech as a segment has this perception of overnight success, right? That you start a company, you create a startup, and then in a couple of years, the thing just explodes. And the truth is, that's not the truth. In almost every case, that's not the case.
Right.
There are some exceptions, and some of them are quite famous. But in most cases, it's a 7, 10, 12-year overnight success. It's many years of things not working, and then things starting to accelerate, and then they continue to accelerate, and it looks like magic, but it's really just the result of a lot of failures, failing through a bunch of paths and weaving your way to the one path that works through a bunch of failures.
An overnight sensation, 10 years in the making.
That's correct. That's the way it works.
One of the issues that we talk about, just as basic users of your product, we've been using Hover now for how long, Lee? A year and a half?
A couple of years now.
A couple of years we've been using it.
Beginning of 2018.
And we enjoy it. And we have customers who even, I think, require it on almost every file.
Every outside file.
Congratulations on that. That's great. But one of the things that one of the issues we have is, what about the inside? Which is, I'm sure, a question that I'm not the first person to pose that question to you. What about the inside?
Yes. What about the inside?
Moving right along.
You know as well as I do, there are a number of folks working on that problem. Because it's 9 years, I know probably all those people, most of them personally. And it's a hard problem, and it's a huge opportunity. And I actually talk with a number of those folks, call it on a quarterly basis. So there's good co-opetition there, I think.
Cool.
We're not focused on that today. I wouldn't want to comment on sort of how quickly, if ever, we would go there, but certainly we at our heart are a technology company. Are the centerpiece of our IP is computer vision and deep learning, and it's a reconstruction pipeline. And there are lots of things we could do with that, of course, including interiors. It's just we're also a small company. Yes, we're having great success and things are accelerating, but we are a relatively small team compared to the best teams in the world with a focus like that. There are only a few companies in the world with a bench like ours in this space, computer vision and deep learning, kind of taking papers and turning them into production code and inventing things. And those companies, everyone on this listening to this knows the names of all those companies. And so we can only focus on our strength is if we laser focus on one thing, we have a chance of building something that even those folks really aren't going to, because they're focused rightfully on their own business models. And for us, it's a bird in the hand versus two in the bush kind of a thing. We need to stay focused.
Sure. And I think that the proof is in the pudding. The uptake of your product from where we sit seems to be growing, almost exponentially. Like you mentioned, Travelers, but we know many carriers that we work with on a daily basis are using your product. Shout out to Kevin Riley, who's doing a great job, as the evangelist for your product. But the industry, for those of you who live under a rock, the industry loves it, and I think ease of use has got to be one of the greatest parts of it. I mean, if you can take a picture with your cell phone, basically, you can use Hover, and the data that it accumulates. Yes, Lee. I mean, you're a claims guy, Lee. I mean, what can you say about the product?
It's fantastic, and it does everything that it advertises that it does. It's so easy. It is a very useful tool, and as we've proven here through some independent studies, it's a very accurate tool. And in fact, early on, I tested it myself just to have the accuracy. That was back in 2018, and it was great. It is. It's very, very useful, and I think that the future is there. I think that we agree with you. We think that the future is at the desk. And I think that it's tools like yours that's making it possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think maybe one thing that comes to mind that we haven't really noted that I think is becoming pretty obvious to our customers who've started earliest and have moved the furthest in this area is not only all the things you just said, but the concept of having a historical record of properties in this country and have a historical record of properties, say within a book of business that is your policyholders' digital property data that one can have over a period of time that also has a historical record of change that is seen in the cloud that a carrier can hold and maintain for their policyholders. That concept and the value of that over time of collecting that data and being able to manage it and return to it in the management or protection of that home for that policyholder is another reality, I think, of our data set.
Sure.
Yeah. We talk to so many people who talk about data, and that's what you do. You collect so many data points about such an important piece of property, right? It's the insureds, it's the insurance companies. It's so important. And I think that you can do so much with it. In fact, me and Rob were talking before this about all the things that I thought Hover could do, and that I'm sure on your roadmaps. But it's very interesting just to think about the possibilities.
Yeah, Kevin has spoken to me about what you guys are doing with underwriting, and I mean that's what a terrific use case that is, and I guess that's part of what you're bringing up now, right?
Yes, right. I mean, a great example of sort of that. We obviously talk to a lot of carriers, and it's pretty uncommon for an underwriting organization and a claims organization to be attached at the hip.
Right, to use the same tool. In fact, they don't on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And so in this particular case, the use cases of the two organizations actually can complement each other, and the collecting of the data up front can be leveraged when the call comes in and the request of the homeowner to honor the contract between the policyholder and the carrier of like, I've got damage now. Well, we can help you because we have all this data already there.
Yeah, I think it's a genius move. Well, AJ, as we wrap up here, I do have one more question. I'm very eager to see if you have any advice for any of our possible insured tech startups. You've been in this business for 9 years. You've seen a lot. You've raised funds. You've talked to venture companies and large companies. Is there any advice that maybe you have to somebody who's just starting out and thinking about starting a company?
I think probably the two things that come to mind. One we just alluded to a bit ago. It's just obviously this needs to be something that one is willing to kind of do until they figure it out, and regardless of the time involved. Again, you may get lucky and you hit pay dirt in weeks or months or a couple of years, but those are the lucky scenarios. In most cases, this will take a very long time, and you have no idea when you'll get there. And so, be okay with that, and so and do it because you want to figure it out, not because you have some plan about in 3 years being in this place. Certainly don't do it for the money, right? And then I think the piece here is everything is about team. At the end of the day, your thing will succeed because you've convinced amazing people to be obsessed with what you're doing and want to be a force multiplier to you, because there's no way you can do it. There's no way you will be able to cause this to occur. In fact, the only way you will be able to do it is because you're good at convincing other amazing people to basically make this thing real. Mm-hmm. And so it's purely about finding special people who will do anything because they're obsessed with not only the idea, but frankly, the team around them that you've built, right? People join you because they develop a sense of kinship or desire to be a part of a team that they meet when they interview. And so if you focus on those things, then it's pretty hard to lose, pretty hard to not get it done.
I love that.
I think that's a real advantage that technology companies can have coming into our industry. I mean, I think that technology companies appreciate the importance of team much more so than some of the older traditional companies and even service providers like ourselves in the industry. It's about the team and the whole team buying in and the whole team being extraordinary together. I think that you outlined that really well. I'm glad that you brought that up. And I know several of the people on your team, and they're terrific. They're rock stars. So kudos on that. Well, listen, we've loved having you, and we appreciate you making time for this in the middle of, one of the biggest challenges our country has faced, certainly in my lifetime, in a long time. And
It's a strange moment.
It's a strange moment, but fortunately, we all had the internet to get it done. So, thank you for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you out in the real world when this is over.
Thank you, AJ.
Yes, no, thank you for the time again, and look forward to it.
Bye now. AJ Altman, InsurTech veteran, InsurTech old timer.
Old timer. 9 years he's been doing this.
I mean, he's been around since it was called not InsurTech, whatever it was called in the old days. Yeah, technology. Right.
You know, Hover's a really, really interesting product. I first learned about Hover at a PLRB 3, maybe 4 years ago. A friend of mine had said, "Hey, I heard about this company. They're going to be there." And, you know, it was really, really cool. And as an adjuster in the adjusting world, I was like, wow, they're going to put us out of business. And now I look at it and I'm like, what a great tool. What a great way to streamline the operation and to allow insurance carriers to get accurate data. So pretty cool, right?
A tool that's incredibly functional.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, a tool that is like you said, it's a great thing to have in your tool belt.
Yeah.
It obviously enables the next generation of claim handling.
Well, and isn't that what we're looking at now? You know, we're looking at what does the new world after coronavirus look like? And it's a lot of insurance companies letting insureds handle their claims, and it's desk adjusting. It's a different world. It's where we were on the verge of it. A lot of people were looking, but now we've been pushed to the brink, and now it's time to jump in. And that's what carriers are doing now. And that's what I expect them to do in the future.
What I'll say is it has been moving at the speed of insurance up until today. And I was on with a carrier vendor manager on the phone, not just before we recorded this, and he said to me, "It's amazing how fast we can move when we don't have a choice." And and as bizarre as that is, as unthinkable as this was 2 months ago, that's the world we live in. I mean, if claims are going to be done, in the claimant is going to have to help.
Yeah.
In many cases.
Well, I really enjoyed visiting with AJ. I would love to have him back on and just talk about those 9 years dealing with venture capital companies, dealing with your Googles and Home Depots and standard industries. What's it like to raise funds and to I think it's a whole nother podcast just talking about his startup and his visions.
And how about just developing the product? Developing the technology is one thing, but then making it into a product that's just right for its specific use case is, that's a whole nother journey. And they've killed it. And like we said, we've had the opportunity to work with them for a while, with the company, with the product. And well, you tell us, what do you think of it? I mean, you in your end of the business, you get to see the product a lot. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we have adjusters who use it all day, and many carriers who want it on every one of their exterior claims. And it does a wonderful job. It integrates with estimating platforms. It really is a great fit, and it's a game changer.
What you brought up about the Hague study,
yeah, that was neat.
Really interesting. Really,
yeah,
great news for them.
Yeah, it was. And Paul Becerra, he's our director of operations here at 470. And he had sent that over to me right before. And he goes, this is a great article, because he's in meetings all the time talking to carriers. And they say, well, what about the accuracy? Is it good? Is it bad? What is it? Has it been tested? And to have that Hague engineering test, that goes a long, long way. And so I actually downloaded the full report and I read it. And it's very detailed on the number of claims that they did and where they did them at. It was 3 different locations. I thought it was great. So yeah, it's an accurate product.
Well, we thank AJ. To tell the story real quickly, we started recording it yesterday, and he was at his home in San Francisco, and bandwidth, as you might imagine, during this period of time is pretty constrained, and we just couldn't get a good enough connection with the internet to his home. So he volunteered to drive to his office today, which he did, so that he could be on a great high speed connection. And so we appreciate him taking the time
Yeah.
to do that and going to all the hassle just to be on our podcast. We're really grateful.
Yes, very, very thankful to him.
So once again, we thank you for being with us. We thank you for subscribing. We thank you for listening. And we thank Kevin Riley and Justin Hansher for their help in getting this all taken care of and their influence. And until next time.
Goodbye, everybody.